Hi everyone, my name is Deyaniracavazos and I'm an LPC from the state of Texas, and in today's video we're going to be talking about 5 things you should know before going into your counseling internship interview. And this is a video that was requested by one of our community members here, and I want to say thank you so much for suggesting this video, because for any of us who have gone through that experience, we know and understand how stressful it can be. And I hope this video helps ease a little bit of that anxiety, or a lot of the anxiety if we're being real. I hope that this video is helpful for you. Now I want to preface this by saying that even if you do all of these things and you prep, sometimes things just don't work out. There are a lot of internship and practicum applicants out there trying to land these opportunities, and so I don't want you to feel discouraged if you go into it, give it your all, and you don't land that internship. It happens. I've received my own share of no's when I was going through this process until I finally got the yeses, and I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I did end up getting. So regardless of how this goes for you, I want to preface all of this by saying that doing this is hard. It's very similar to job hunting. You're getting like the prelude to what job hunting is going to be like post-grad. And so let's mentally prepare for that before we even get into this video, but let's go ahead and get started. So the first tip that I have for y'all is one that is going to save your butt when you are in that interview, and it has to do with the knowledge that you bring to the table. So this is just a suggestion, and I always aim for the least amount of stress as possible, because as a student, you're already going through so much, learning so much. This is a stressful time and period in your life, and we don't need to overextend ourselves more than we need to. So I try to keep this as simple as possible. So personally, I suggest knowing one counseling theory that you really resonate with, and it's okay to have more than one, but one is the minimum. 1 to 2 counseling approaches from that theory, or from a different theory if you'd like, because personally I use an integrative approach to counseling, so it is more than okay if you resonate with certain things from certain theories and you combine them. But again, that is not something that you have to pressure yourself to do right now in internship. Just wanted to throw it out there in case you're resonating with different things. And 2 to 5 techniques from that counseling theory and approach that you're choosing. Now, if you heard all of that and you're like, I'm overwhelmed, that sounds like a lot of jargon. What the hell is going on? Because I took counseling and theories a while back. I got you, and I completely understand, and we should not feel ashamed for feeling overwhelmed when it comes to things like that. There's a lot of pressure on students to feel like you should have memorized every single thing that you learned, and we are under so much stress, and you're learning so much during your time in grad school that it makes sense if you need to make a cheat sheet for yourself. And if anything, I highly recommend making cheat sheets for yourself. They will save your butt when it comes to doing these kinds of things. So you're going to create a little cheat sheet for yourself, right? And I'm going to put an example here for you, but this is what you're going to study, if you will, before you go into the interview. So a counseling theory, for example, would be a humanistic theory, if that was one that you were going with, but select the one that you resonate with the most. Some of the counseling approaches that may fall under that, and just some that are personal favorites of mine, are person-centered therapy, or client-centered therapy. It's also known as solution-focused brief therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. And if you have an idea of the kind of population that you're going to be working with, you can select certain approaches that might work well. I tried to give you a little range there. So if you learn some of those clusters that I gave you, it's pretty well-rounded in that sense, where you have a theory that comes with a lot of techniques, very structured if you need it to be, but then you have another one that focuses on those core things that come with being a counselor, such as active listening, validating. And so those are some examples. But again, this is all about you and what resonates with you and your experience. So if you want to run with this, go for it, but also know that this is your time to explore what you want to explore, so do what you want to do. There is no perfect technique or approach or theory, as we learned in grad school. The important thing is pick the ones that you resonate with the most, because either way you are going to have to make modifications once you are one-on-one with your therapy clients. And you're also going to observe this once you're in the field and you're observing other counselors and you're shadowing them. You're going to see how they modify a lot of these techniques. So moving on to the techniques portion, right? We talked about the theories, the approaches, techniques now. Some of those might be unconditional positive regard, congruence, reflective listening, miracle questions, question, scaling question, mindfulness, emotion regulation, and validation. And you can also use therapistaid.com if you want to explore different worksheets that fall under those techniques. So for example, dialectical behavioral therapy has various techniques such as emotion regulation, validation. So it's like the umbrella that these techniques fall under, and it'll give you different worksheets that you can use. For example, one of them that has to do with emotion regulation is teaching that feelings are like waves. There's so many that you can explore depending on the approaches and the techniques that you're wanting to use. So definitely go check out therapistaid.com. That site also has safety plans, which is something that is going to be really important just in case that you need it. Print out safety plans for you to have just in case. And if you've never heard of a safety plan, this is one of those things that's really important once you're out in the field. In case a client ever voices SI or is in crisis, it's very important to create a safety plan with them. And sometimes it can look very structured or a little bit modified. Every counselor has a different approach, but personally I highly recommend, especially if you've never worked community mental health or had experience yet, print it out for you to have and take with you. So this is definitely the time to go back and look at all of the coursework that you had for counseling theories and look at the different approaches. Refresh yourself a little bit and pick the ones that resonate with you. You might have PowerPoints from that class. You may have your book from that class. So now is the perfect time to bust that out. Also, if you have the freedom to change the order of your coursework, I would highly suggest moving the counseling theories and approaches a little bit closer to your internship time if you can, because that way it'll still be pretty fresh in your mind, because again, we are learning so much in grad school. So the way you also pair your coursework and the timing of that can be really beneficial for you if you're allowed to. Some programs allow it, some don't. But either way, save everything from your classes, your PowerPoints, all of that, because once you hit internship, it's gonna be time to pull some of that out and just give yourself a little refresher. Now, I know I mentioned the amounts of things, you know, the amounts of techniques, amounts of theories, and so this is just a suggestion. If you want to focus on more than that, that is okay. But I personally like suggesting this because the most important thing that you can do as a counseling intern is first just learn the basics and the foundations of being a counselor, such as active listening. We don't really realize it until we're out in the field in front of clients how important and how much of an art and a science it is to truly practice active listening. And some of the best advice that I was given by previous supervisors is if you think that you're already great at that and you don't need to work on it, then we're already headed in a bad direction. Something as quote unquote simple as active listening is never something that we should just brush off and take for granted. These are the core things that make us counselors, and it's really important. So that's why I tried to give you all like the minimum amount of theories and approaches and techniques to use, because you're gonna find that one-on-one, when you're actually out there with your clients, building the relationship with them is going to be the biggest and the most revolutionary thing that you can do as a counselor, especially in the stressful times that we're currently living in. Holding space for clients and actively listening to them and creating a safe space is a big deal. You're going to be super excited and you're going to want to just throw everything at your clients. I have been there. You're going to probably also make yourself feel bad for not throwing everything at your clients. You're going to come out of these first sessions feeling like, oh my gosh, I should have said that, I should have done that. And what I will tell you is that that feeling never goes away. If you actually care about the work that you do, it is a normal part of being a counselor. Now, the intensity will gradually lessen a little bit, but give yourself grace. This is practice and this is volunteer work, and this is a part of learning. So moving on to the next tip, and that is to read about the site that you're going to be interviewing for. So go look them up, go look at their website and read a little bit more about them, what they stand for, because this is very similar to a job interview. So when you go in, they might ask you a question having to do with, why do you want to intern with us? What made you choose us? And so you definitely don't want to say, I was desperate, I needed a place, because yes, we all know that, but treat it as a job interview and read about the place that you're going to want to intern for. And even if it's not something that really resonates with you and calls your attention, find something interesting about it, about the mission and the work that they do, and mention that as you're talking to them. I myself ended up finding a site that I wasn't necessarily truly interested in at first, but I tried to find something that interested me to reflect back to my site supervisor. And that was the fact that they offered both medical and behavioral health in that clinic, and how cool I thought it was that they blended this, because the counselors could interact with the doctors and just give an all-around better experience to clients. It's definitely you selling yourself for sure. So whatever you do, even if you're not the most confident in your abilities, do not sell yourself short. It is so important, because your site supervisor and the person you're interviewing with needs to have the trust that you are someone who is open to learning, that you're someone who is consistent, who's going to show up, that you care about the work that they do, and that you're trustworthy. I want to see someone who's passionate about this work and who has something to bring to the table. Now, there are always exceptions to this, right? Sometimes there are just some shitty site supervisors. No matter how you want to spin it, some people just hate their job and are not great at it. If we're being honest, it happens. And so do your best in this interview. See how you feel with the person that you're interviewing yourself with. Sometimes you have to take the hit and go for the site that you don't really love, but that's gonna help you graduate. But sometimes you get lucky and you get to have the site that really mirrors what you want to do post-grad. And so whichever you find yourself in, make the best out of the situation, and just remember it is temporary. And regardless if you have a shitty experience or a great experience, you're going to get to walk away from this learning something about yourself, about how you want to conduct the work in the future. I myself have had some really horrible experiences and some really great experiences. And from the horrible ones, I learned the kind of clinician that I don't want to be, the kind of customer service that I don't want to provide for my own therapy clients. And so take all that you're learning, even the things that you don't like. So moving on to the next tip, which is pretty similar to this, it kind of goes hand in hand with it, is know why you want to volunteer at this internship site so you can convey that. So for example, if you're wanting to practice your counseling skills with this specific population, mention that. Mention why that matters to you. So for example, for me, I grew up in my hometown. I went to university in my hometown, and I did my internship and my practicum in my hometown. So something that I would say a lot was the passion that I have for serving the community that I grew up in, that I've been a part of. So that's something that's always really important, that resonates with me to mention, and tie that into why I appreciate the work that they're doing and how they're servicing the community. And so the next tip that I have for you all is know ahead of time how many hours a day you're willing to intern. The days a week, your start date, your end date. It's really important that you sit down and plan that, because you're probably going to be asked that during the interview. They're going to ask you how many hours you need, when are you available. So it's really important that you write that down, and it's also a good time to practice boundaries. I want to encourage you to fight the urge to say, whenever you want me, however you want me, I'm here. Please do not do that to yourself, because you do not want to burn yourself out before you even become a counselor. This is the perfect time to start practicing setting boundaries. So give them your availability, and if after that they say, you know what, that doesn't really work for us, could you stay a bit later certain days, then you can sit with that and really decide if that's okay with you. But it's always going to be better to start out of the gate with what you are fully comfortable with, so that way you can negotiate a little bit if you need to. So fight the urge, okay, to overextend yourself. And if you watched my previous video, I also talked about why it is so important that you sit down and plan this portion to make sure that you end up graduating, and that you calculate things so that way your internship site can be honest also if they're able to provide you with that many hours. Indirect hours, super easy to get. Direct hours, tricky. Time and time again has always been tricky for all counseling students. It's not impossible, but it's also not easy. So, it's really important that you end up planning this out, so that way you do everything that's in your power to ensure that you can graduate on time. And so we've made it to the final tip of the video, which is to plan and write down the questions that you have to ask your potential site supervisor. Now, the reason why it's so important for you to plan this beforehand is because during the interview, you do not want to end up in the position where they ask you at the end, do you have any questions? And you say, no, I don't have any questions. That's it. You always want to have at least one or two other questions because this allows for them to get to know you a little bit more. They want to know what you're interested in. A good site supervisor wants to know what you're interested in. So show interest in the work that they do and ask the questions. Personally, one of my favorite questions to ask other clinicians has always been, what made you get into this work? Because I admire what you've been able to do up until this point. Would you mind sharing why you became a counselor and how working in the field has been for you? If you like that question, definitely feel free to use it or to make it your own. But that is it for this video, everyone. I really hope that you found it helpful. And if you end up using these tips, definitely let me know down in the comment section. And if you already went through your practicum and internship and you're watching this and you're thinking, you know what, I wish someone had told me this, prepped me this way before going into the interview, definitely share those tips down below in the comment section because there are so many of you that also have so much wisdom to share. Good luck, everyone. I'm rooting for each and every one of you. Take care, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.